What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com.
Here are my DFS picks for MLB Thursday, July 29th.
These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button
And hit that bell icon.
so you don't miss our new videos.
In this video, I'm going to go over my top DFS picks for today's MLB slate.
And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made.
Okay guys, we have a 5-game slate tonight, so let's take a look at the pitcher position. I'm going to save a little salary at the pitcher position here tonight. I like Frankie Montas with a 9% pitching advantage over a low salary batting team, the Los Angeles Angels. Frankie Montas pitches his best ball versus righty batters, only giving up a .687 OPS versus righties, and he's facing 6 righties here tonight. On top of that, the Angels have only hit 10 of his last 44 pitches. That's a .227 batting average. He's 8,800 FanDuel salary, and he's 200 more on DraftKings. Projected at 25.7 fantasy points here tonight. He has an ERA of 4.34. His record is 8-8 on the season, pitching an average of 94 pitches per game, averaging 31 fantasy points per game, and he's been on fire, scoring 43, 37, and 57 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Frankie Montas here versus the Los Angeles Angels. Okay, let's take a look at the catcher first base position. I like Eric Haas with a 76% batting advantage over a low salary pitcher, Alexander Wells. Eric Haas is batting 48% better versus lefty pitchers, batting a 1.063 OPS versus lefties. And Alexander Wells, he pitches his worst ball versus righty batters, 29% worse than his other pitches, giving up a 1.056 OPS versus righties. Now there's no at-bats versus Wells yet, and Eric Haas is 3,200 FanDuel salary. He's 1,700 more on DraftKings, projected at 9.3 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 12 fantasy points per game on the season, and he's been on fire, scoring 35, 29, and 19 fantasy points in the last 3 games. And I like this pick because Vegas thinks there's going to be 10 runs scored in this game. That's their over-under. So I like Eric Haas here versus Alexander Wells. Okay, now I have a value play for you. I like Miguel Cabrera with a 59% batting advantage over that same low salary pitcher, Alexander Wells. Miguel Cabrera bats 31% better versus lefty pitchers. He's batting a .922 OPS versus lefties. And we know Alexander Wells pitches his worst ball versus righty batters, giving up a 1.056 OPS versus righties. Miguel Cabrera is only 2,500 FanDuel salary and 800 more on DraftKings. He's projected at 10.6 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 8 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored a 19, 22, and 3 fantasy points in the last 3 games. And we know Vegas thinks this is going to be a high-scoring game, 10 runs scored in this game. So I like Miguel Cabrera here versus Alexander Wells. Okay, another value play. I like Mitch Moreland with a 30% batting advantage over Alex Cobb. Mitch Moreland bats 24% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .828 OPS versus righties. And Alex Cobb, he pitches his worst ball versus lefty batters, giving up a .747 OPS versus lefties. Mitch Moreland is 10 for 33, batting a .303 .303 batting average, and a .954 OPS versus Cobb. 2 of those 10 hits are for home runs, and he has 3 doubles in there. And he's only $2,500 FanDuel salary. He's only $600 more on DraftKings. So I like that price on both sites, projected at 10.2 fantasy points here tonight. Now, he's only averaging 6 fantasy points per game on the season, and he's been in a slump, only scoring 0, 0, and 3 fantasy points in the last 3 games. But he's low salary, and I like the splits and the batter versus pitcher matchup, so I like Mitch Moreland here versus Alex Cobb. Okay, let's take a look at the second base position. Okay, I got a super value play for you. This is a high risk, high reward play, but I like Tony Kemp with a 50% batting advantage over Alex Cobb. Tony Kemp is batting 44% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .751 OPS versus righties, and Alex Cobb is giving up a .747 OPS versus lefties. Now, Tony Kemp is 1 for 3 with a .333 batting average and a .666 OPS versus Cobb, but I like this pick because he's only $2,200 FanDuel salary and $900 more on DraftKings. Projected at 8.1 fantasy points here tonight. He's averaging 7 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 0, 6, and 0 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Tony Kemp as a value play here versus Alex Cobb.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, let's take a look at the third base position. I like Manny Machado, batting against a low-salary pitcher, Kyle Freeland. Manny Machado is batting a .883 OPS versus lefties, and Kyle Freeland is giving up a .796 OPS versus righties. And I like this pick because Manny Machado is 8 for 23, batting a .348 batting average and a .966 OPS versus Freeland. He's $3,900 FanDuel salary, and he's $1,200 more on DraftKings. He's projected at 11.3 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 12 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 6, 29, and 22 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Manny Machado here versus Kyle Freeland. Okay, who do we have at the shortstop position? I like Bo Bichette with an 8% batting advantage over Eduardo Rodriguez. Bo Bichette, he's batting 10% better versus lefty pitchers, batting a .903 OPS versus lefties, and Eduardo Rodriguez, he's giving up a .761 OPS versus righties. Bo Bichette is 3 for 6, batting .500 with a 1.667 OPS versus Rodriguez. One of those 3 hits is for a home run, and he's $4,100 FanDuel salary, $1,600 more on DraftKings, projected at 11.3 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 13 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 12, 22, and 16 fantasy points in the last 3 games. And I like this pick because Vegas thinks there's going to be 10.5 runs scored in this game. That's their over-under. So I like Bo Bichette here versus Eduardo Rodriguez. Now I also like Xander Bogaerts with a 14% batting advantage over Hyun-Jin Ryu. Xander Bogaerts, is batting 14% better versus lefty pitchers, batting a .964 OPS versus lefties, and Hyun-Jin Ryu is giving up a .664 OPS versus righties. But I like this pick because Xander Bogaerts is 5 for 10, batting .500 with a 1.545 OPS versus Ryu. And he's only $3,500 FanDuel salary. Now he's $1,800 more on DraftKings, and he's projected at 10.8 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 11 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 6, 4, and 3 fantasy points in his last 3 games. And Vegas thinks this is going to be a high-scoring game. 10.5 runs scored in this game. That's their over-under. So I like Xander Bogaerts here versus Hyun-Jin Ryu. Okay, moving on to the outfield position. I like Cedric Mullins with a 49% batting advantage over Casey Mize. Cedric Mullins is batting 21% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .876 OPS versus righties, and Casey Mize throws his worst ball versus switch hitters, 28% worse than his other pitches, giving up a 1.002 OPS versus switch hitters. There's no at-bats versus Mize yet, and Cedric Mullins is $3,100 FanDuel salary. He's $1,800 more on DraftKings, projected at 12.3 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 12 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 15, 22, and 6 fantasy points in the last 3 games. And I like this pick because Vegas thinks this is going to be a high-scoring game. 10 runs scored in this game. That's their over-under. So I like Cedric Mullins here versus Casey Mize. I also like Teoscar Hernandez with a 15% batting advantage over Eduardo Rodriguez. Teoscar Hernandez is batting 17% better versus lefty pitchers, batting a 1.003 OPS versus lefties, and Eduardo Rodriguez is giving up a .761 OPS versus righties. Teoscar Hernandez is 7 for 19, batting a .368 batting average and a 1.245 OPS versus Rodriguez. 3 of those 7 hits are for home runs. He's $3,500 FanDuel salary, $1,600 more on DraftKings, projected at 10.5 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 11 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored a 0, 6, and 10 fantasy points in his last 3 games. And Vegas thinks this is going to be a high-scoring game, 10.5 runs scored in this game. So I like Teoscar Hernandez here versus Eduardo Rodriguez. I also like Tommy Pham with a 16% batting advantage over a low-salary pitcher, Kyle Freeland. Tommy Pham is batting 23% better versus lefty pitchers, batting a .836 OPS versus lefties, and Kyle Freeland is giving up a .796 OPS versus righties. And I like this pick because Tommy Pham is 5 for 13, batting a .385 batting average and a 1.044 OPS versus Freeland. He's $3,200 FanDuel salary, $1,400 more on DraftKings, projected at 9.2 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 10 fantasy points per game on the season. He's in a slump, scoring 0, 0, and 3 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I think this is a good bounce back game. So I like Tommy Pham here versus Kyle Freeland.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.